I think it would tell me. It looks glitchy. It looks like the server's messed up. All right, let's talk about Yeonmi Park. So Yeonmi Park is a North Korean defector, a celebrity defector who's gained a
진정한
huge
국룰이 됐어.
audience in the United States. And she's of course been propped up by many NGOs and think tanks, libertarian think tanks in the U.S. who pay her a lot of money to do these speaking engagements. So it's turned her into this sort of online celebrity. But even liberal sources, or even liberal outlets and liberal academics have poked holes in her stories, found contradictions, places where she's blatantly contradicted herself, places where her story literally couldn't be true. So, a lot of Western media lies about their enemy countries are based on truth. They're based on facts that are then just blown out of proportion to a crazy degree. Like the protests in China, anytime people are upset with their government at all in China, the U.S. media reports on it 24/7, and they act like the people in China are overthrowing their government. Right? The massive people in China are rising up against their horrible, oppressive, dictatorial government. When in reality, some people have critiques of their government, and maybe they organized a protest, but it's nothing like what the U.S. makes it out to be. And then you have all these mainstream media pundits who, why are the Chinese people protesting? Well, me, as a liberal American pundit who takes a bunch of money from Western NGOs, I think that the Chinese people are overthrowing their government because their government imprisons everyone and tortures people for fun and kills all their puppies. And then Americans watch that like this. Interesting. It must be true. We're so lucky to live in the land of the free. But the main point I want to make is that, it's usually something that's kind of true, like the protest, then just blown out of proportion to the utmost degree by every outlet in Western media. But a lot of the stuff Yeonmi Park says is just made up. Yeonmi Park seemingly just pulls things out of her butt, as do a lot of the North Korean defectors. And we're going to talk about why today. We, in our podcast with Derek Ford of the Liberation School, one of my favorite podcasts we've ever done, talking to someone who spent a ton of time in Korea, both in the north and south, studying their history, studying their current system, their economic system, and their system of governance. And he told us a lot of the stories that you hear about North Korean defectors or the terrors going on in North Korea. They'll be republished even by mainstream outlets like BBC in the US, or, less mainstream outlets, worse outlets even than the BBC or New York Times or whatever, like the Daily Beast or the New York Post. A lot of these stem from South Korean tabloids, like People magazine, basically, of South Korea. And Derek told us when he would talk to South Koreans, they understood that stuff wasn't true, right? They understood the stuff like we understand in the US, like you have to take everything TMZ and People magazine reports with a huge grain of salt, because they're just throwing anything they can to get clicks, and they have no real journalistic integrity. South Korean people understand that's what their tabloids are like, where a lot of these stories are originating. And they would ask Derek, like, do Americans really believe that? They really believe these stories, like all North Korean people have to have the same haircut as Kim Jong-un? Like, holy crap, I can't believe that. We all understand those aren't true. And what's funny was there was a story that everybody has to get the same haircut as Kim Jong-un, and a story that nobody can get the same haircut as Kim Jong-un. They came out within like a year of each other. Again, they originated from South Korean tabloids, but then were published in U.S. mainstream media. And there's a viral video now of two guys going to North Korea to get a haircut, and debunking this myth. It's not that viral, but it's pretty viral. And I mean, you even see them on the tabloids in the U.S. Like anytime you're checking out at the grocery store, a lot of time you're checking out at the grocery store, you see Kim Jong-un on People magazine. Like, Kim Jong-un ate his people's puppies. And it's because, these outrageous stories work for clickbait, which is all the tabloids care about. So, Thank you, Ross, for the super chat. Whenever I see Amy Goodman gets behind a protest, I smell a rat. Yeah, democracy now they are not what they used to be, are they? Not at all. But thank you, Ross. Ross is one of the um, most consistent supporters of Midwestern Marks, constantly sending us super chats and stuff. So glad you believe in our project enough to support us financially with your own hard-earned money, Ross. Appreciate you, and you almost always agree with your analysis, or I have every time I can think of a time where you've said something. Yeah, this is democracy now. I used to think they were a great anti-imperialist source, but I don't really read them anymore because, like you said, not what they used to be. Um, so the South Korean tabloids, profit off these stories about the DPRK. And a lot of these stories about the DPRK originate from those tabloids. But you also have a whole TV show called Now on My Way to Meet You. This is a South Korean TV show where they interview North Korean defectors. And, they come up, or, whether they're true or not, they tell the most outrageous stories about the DPRK. And there's actually a lot of competition for people to get on this show because you get paid a lot of money, right? And you can become a celebrity like Defector, like Yeonmi Park, and, just go around telling stories for NGOs, whether true or not, or a stretch of the truth, and you make a lot of money. And, the economic conditions in South Korea are not very good right now for the masses of people. The US has done everything they can to prop them up, but they've done everything they can to prop up their capitalist class. It's not like they're taking care of the South Korean workers, as, is exemplified by these great movies like Parasite and Squid Game that come out basically criticizing capitalism. Like Squid Game is saying, people would rather risk their lives for money in this game than go back and live in the real world under capitalism. So that's it could almost be an analogy for this TV show, right? Defectors living in South Korea in order to make money are willing to say whatever they need to say about the DPRK. And a lot of people who talk on this show also are filtered in by the South Korean intelligence agency, which is, like, believe it or not, they're almost like worse than the CIA in terms of what they're willing to do. Maybe that's not true, but pretty bad. And that is discussed in depth in the film Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang, which was put out by the Liberation School. But because of all these factors, because of the sort of defector industry that exists in South Korea, defector stories haven't been taken seriously by academics for like 20 years at least. You can't quote you can't write an academic paper about North Korea and then quote like something a defector said on the TV show Now on My Way to Meet You. It just won't be taken seriously because we know, regardless of your thoughts on the DPRK, and I've said even a lot of liberals take this position now who don't like the DPRK, regardless of your thoughts on it, you can't take the defector stories, 100% serious at their face value. You have to understand, the motivations behind becoming a celebrity defector, the financial motivations, the amount of NGOs and intelligence agencies who prop up this defector industry. So yeah, if you want to know more about the defector industry, definitely check out Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang. They interview a couple defectors and go to Korea and there's like a lawyer who works on behalf of defectors who were lied to, because there are these brokers in South Korea or China who try and find people in the DPRK thinking about leaving and say, we'll give you this much money and set you up with a good life if you leave. And then a lot of these people were lied to, right? They get the defector stories from these people and then pay them less than what they promised, or, don't set them up, or they lie to these people because a lot of people are in the DPRK where it's a different lifestyle. And, you do have your needs taken care of by the government ultimately, or the government will give you a job if you don't have one. Then they go into capitalism, this system where you have to fend for yourself completely, that they haven't grown up in, right? They don't really understand it. So there's a lot of defectors who are angry at the South Korean government and the intelligence agencies and the ruling class, So they're like lawyers representing them now who talk in the movie Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang about it. But today, the video that made me want to talk about Yeonmi Park, she's saying that Kim Jong Un gathered all of the artists in Pyongyang, a city of 2.8 million people. He got all the artistic ones, and made them watch him shoot an orchestra conductor 90 times. What is the evidence for this? A singular South Korean paper that publishes daily. Dong Al Ilbo is the name of it. And they switched to being a more conservative, more clickbaity, tabloid-esque paper after their revenue and their finances got too low, which I thought was interesting. So I don't know if they're exactly a tabloid like People magazine, but definitely a conservative right-wing outlet who changed to start being a conservative right-wing outlet once their revenue levels got too low. And stories like this get clicks, right? Why would it not get clicks? A story about Kim Jong-un shooting an orchestra conductor 90 times in front of every single artist in the capital city of the DPRK. I mean, that's a crazy story. If that was true, it would definitely be worth knowing about. So, yeah, and then when we're talking about like the South Korean intelligence agencies that I was mentioning before, or the South Korean media and how it works, or just the South Korean government and state as a whole, and their economy as a whole, really, was basically created by the U.S. Right, the U.S. basically created SK by occupying Korea in the 1950s and directly overseeing their economic and political construction. Jimmy Carter himself said that the U.S. has done everything they can to starve North Korea, prevent North Korea from developing, while doing everything they can to develop South Korea. Like I said, develop the capitalist class of South Korea. Which, if you don't know, North Korea has had the most stringent sanction regime on any country ever, other than the U.S. sanctions on Cuba, for the last 70 years, since the U.S. destroyed their infrastructure with bombs and occupied half the country, which is now South Korea. The U.S. has kept brutal sanctions on them, trying to starve out their economy, basically old-fashioned siege tactics. So yeah, and Jimmy Carter admitted to that, which is also in the movie Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang. So their media outlets, their government, their intelligence agencies, their education system, they're all very pro-US. They're all very pro-US empire. They have to be. Like I said, the US directly oversaw and basically created the development of SK. I shouldn't say created, because the labor of the South Korean workers, was what the US needed to exploit in order to develop this country. But all of their country's media apparatuses, government apparatuses, are very pro-US because they're reliant on the US and they were largely created by the US. So here's a Newsweek article where this story that Yeonmi Park is reading originated. So in this story, they couldn't even confirm the name of the like, they did a little bit of research to make sure that this was a true story. And they couldn't even confirm the name of the conductor who was apparently shot 90 times. So this is a real quote from the article. Ju wrote, Ju was the author of the original article, JOO, in the South Korean paper that Newsweek is taking and, repeating this story. And then Yeonmi Park takes it from Newsweek and then repeats it on her YouTube channel, spreads it to millions of people. But they say Ju wrote that the man was the conductor from the ceremony and that his name was heard to be Hyun Woo Cho. Ju also wrote that he tried to verify the name online, but the only conductor with even a similarly sounding name that he could find was Hyun Ho Ryu, who was with the National Contribution Choir. When Ju wrote the article, he said he was still not sure if the executed person was named Hyun Ho Ryu or Hyun Woo Cho or something else. But it is certain that the conductor was publicly executed anyways. What do you mean it's certain? You don't give any evidence. There's no evidence in this article at all. And then when they tried to fact check it, by saying, here's the conductor who was apparently killed by Kim Jong-un. They can't even find a conductor by that name. But then they say, oh, but it's sure that they were publicly executed. It's not sure. It's not sure. This is just journalistic malpractice. You're saying that you're sure the conductor was executed, but then you try and double check it. You try and do actual journalism by looking up conductors in North Korea who have this same name, and they don't exist. So that was pretty crazy. But then, of course, you have Yeonmi Park, who's not going to bring that up. She's not going to bring up that we couldn't, verify the name of the conductor who was killed. Yeonmi's just going to say this happened to her millions of followers and viewers or whatever else. And then Yeonmi saying that this happened and saying, you have to believe me. I'm from the DPRK. Why would I lie? That message is going to be boosted by the NGOs and the, arms of finance capital and the pro-corporate U.S. media who have given her this career, this job as a celebrity defector. And, Yeonmi Park hasn't been in Korea for years. She hasn't been in Korea since 2007. So I guess I get why you would want to hear her story, but I mean, why is she considered an expert on things that have happened in Korea since then, right? In 2020, don't you think the country has changed? But I mean, she started out making money telling her own story, right? This is what happened to me. But in order to keep this career as a celebrity defector going, she needs to comment on stories that happened after she left. So that's basically her job now, is just taking these tabloid-esque stories with little confirmed evidence from Korea and saying that they're true, as if she's, been living in Korea for the last 15 years when she hasn't. So yeah, let's check out this video now. I think I've talked enough for the time being.
Soldiers using a shovel to put and gather what was remaining after the execution and take them away. And then what he did was demanding every artist stand up and go closer and then take a look around of the site of the execution. So many of them were like fainting, peeing in their pants. And do you know what this does? When you see something like public
So this is what I mean sort of by why is she an expert on these issues? It's almost like she tells the stories like she's still in Korea. Like she's been living in Korea and, she saw all these people who witnessed this execution. But like I said, she's been living in the US, making tons and tons of money to do these YouTube videos and speaking engagements since, she fled to China in 2007, but then South Korea in 2009 and the US in 2014. So she's been in the US doing this since 2014 after making a bunch of money in South Korea doing this. So it's not like she was a witness to this supposed atrocity.
Execution once, you are traumatized for the rest of your life. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Yeonmi Park. I'm a North Korean defector human rights activist. So today I have a very important news to deliver. I still somehow do not get it. This is happening in this 21st century. And North Korea is somehow so forgotten from the rest of the humanity. We have no clue what is happening in the darkness. And there's just only this few news that we get out, and majorly from the border towns and in the capital. So
it's weird how they admit that, we don't really know what's going on in the DPRK. All we have are a few accounts, from South Korea or from defectors who, like I said, have often been brokered by South Korean intelligence agency. And in Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang, they, defectors accuse the South Korean intelligence agents of torturing them, right? Torturing insane stories out of them. So they say this is the only information we have about the DPRK, which isn't true, right? We did a podcast with Derek Ford, who spent a whole bunch of time in the DPRK, and talked for 2 hours about their history and about their struggle and the nuances of their economy. There's another great movie called My Brothers and Sisters in the North, that basically tries to show what everyday life for the workers is like in the DPRK, and talks about their economy and their productive base. So it's not true that all we can get are defector testimonies and tabloid stories with no evidence like this. That's just what the US NGOs and people like your celebrity defectors prey upon or use to get clicks and money.
So the news that I got in recent days is that it's just heartbreaking. Kim Jong-un literally executed the main conductor from an orchestra for 90 times. After his execution, if you shoot somebody for 90 times, really especially these days, those bullets are so strong, a human gonna lose a shape. They are not even gonna look like a human. All is gonna left is just a lot of pieces of meats and bones on the ground.
So first of all, she laughed when she said there was meat and bones on the ground from people being executed. Um, which is weird, but someone said this exact NK Music slaps. That's what I was thinking when I was watching this. I'm like, this performance looks really cool. This work of art that they're gonna detail or show clips from a little bit more in the future. It looks awesome.
And Kim Jong-un demanded the soldiers using a shovel to put and gather what was remaining after the execution and take them away. But during this public execution, Kim Jong-un ordered every single artist go demand watch this public execution. I will tell you why this man, the conductor, got executed. What could he have possibly done in this 21st century, getting that killed in that most cruel way?
And the story for why Kim Jong Un killed this guy, I don't even know where she got this story from because I couldn't find it in any of the sources about this. But this might be the most absurd part of the video.
This year, on February 16th, that was North Korea's one of the biggest holidays. That was when Kim Jong-il, the second Kim, was born, supposedly. So, and there was something new happened again. Kim Jong-un, his wife, Lee Seol-ju, who was disappeared for last 13 months, suddenly reappeared on that birthday. And then Kim Jong-un took her to visit his father's grave in the morning and afternoon, attending this performance by this orchestra.
Looks like they're loving it. Looks like they thought the performance and the music was as cool as we thought it was. Make sure to share, like, and comment on the stream if you want more people to know the truth about the DPRK, by the way.
It's called 나우나수 관현악단, and often we think it's like North Korea's girl group. But yeah, so this group is designated to have a performance in front of kings. And there's a huge orchestra and there's a main conductor. And the man who died was Do Hyunwoo. His name is Hyunwoo Jo, and he was the one who got killed. After each these performances with the Kim attending, North Koreans all have to do this gathering after and assess and analyze which part that Kim Jong-un liked the most, which part he didn't like the most, and learning and then try to get better. But in this time, sometimes Kim Jong-un personally says, oh, I liked each this singer, maybe I like this part about the whole performance. This time, Kim Jong-un said, somehow he really liked, they did something new magic with the shadow magic. So they do some like a tricks.
This looks so cool. Again, I really want to see this performance or this play or this musical.
With the shadow, And North Korean artists were trying that for the first time this year. Somehow Kim Jong-un was very impressed by it. However, in this delivery of the meeting, in front of all artists, people were saying, okay, this is a part where the deal leader liked the most, so letting the people know, and there's some prize to get if you were liked by Kim. But this conductor said, I'm not even sure that wasn't a huge deal. Why would he compliment on such a thing? But it wasn't like he was standing up and telling everybody about that. He was just like more talking to his like close friend in the orchestra. And of course, this friend was a spy and reported.
Oh no, Kim had spies within the orchestra. So Kim said he liked the performance. He wasn't even critical. And this orchestra conductor didn't know why he liked that part of the performance. But he said that to who was actually a spy.
Reported on him. This is a tricky thing. This happened to actually my own mother. My mother, when Kim Il Sung died, the first Kim in 1994, I was like infant, few months old infant. My mom heard a rumor that the Kim Il Sung died not from exhaustion by working for the people. Like literally, North Koreans told me, the regime told us that Kim Il Sung died from exhaustion and hunger and starvation.
He probably did. It ain't easy throwing or overthrowing and protecting your country from not one, but two brutal colonial oppressors. Kim Il sung had to overthrow the horrific, torturing, enslaving Japanese colonizers. And then the US came in, killed 20% of their population. And the DPRK threw them out too. Now they still have their sovereignty, and the US is pissed about it to this day. He probably did die from exhaustion. Also, this is the ever-changing story about Yeonmi Park's mom. Her story about her mom has like 5 different versions that she tells.
Because he was working so tirelessly for the people. But somebody told her that actually Kim died from heart attack, not from the exhaustion. So she told her best friend, saying, "Can you believe there are such a people saying these kind of bad things about their leader?" And then that lady reported on my mom. Luckily, my mom survived. However, this time in North Korean settings is like this. There are 3 people. I am watching this friend. But while I'm being a spy, I know that I'm being spied on by somebody else. So even if I'm being a nice person, not gonna report on this person gonna report on me. But if that person doesn't report on me, someone gotta report on them. So you are being spied and spying on somebody.
So did you catch that? There's a spy in almost every area of society. Her mom got spied upon. This orchestra conductor got spied upon. But North Korea is so evil. Kim Jong-un's so evil and authoritarian and oppressive that they have spies for the spies. So there's a spy also spying on the spy who's spying for Kim Jong-un. Like, how many damn spies are there in this country? And how does one man, Kim Jong-un, have time to meet with all of them? Like I said, the city of Pyongyang itself is 2.8 million people. How is Kim Jong-un finding the time to spy on each one of these people? I don't know how one man could do that. It just seems physically impossible, but I guess that's why his Kim Il-sung died of exhaustion. It's hard to spy on everybody and then also spy on the spies and keep this spy system going all the time without ever having the people get mad and overthrow you or demand a change.
This system creates complete distrust between people. We cannot even trust our own back in North Korea. So Yeonmi, he spoke to his friend about like he wasn't too impressed by the shadow magic, and he reported, and Kim Jong-un got so upset. So he said, gather every single artist in Pyongyang. And once they got gathered, he demanded to shoot him for 90 times. So each AK-47 gun has like 30 shots inside, and used it all. And every artist had to see from in front of their eyes. So there were times in 2013, there was a pleasure squad group that Kim Jong-il gave a gift to his son. There were some rumors about that group was not being loyal and they had some capitalistic sentiment in that group. So Kim Jong-un got so angry, but which that group was actually where Lee Seol-ji, his wife, is from. Other than that few people, and also these girls knew about the secrets of Lee Seol-ji before marrying Kim Jong-un. So that was also main excuse for Kim Jong-un to kill all of them. Anybody knew the past of Lee Seol-ji, he wanted to be gone.
I don't understand the videos that they chose for this video. Every video clip of the DPRK, it's like Kim Jong-un laughing and smiling and applauding the people. And then it's like these cool musical performances. And then Yeonmi's like, and then Kim Jong-un killed all of them off camera. It's like, did he though? I feel like you're lying.
Few of them were even pregnant at the time. After gathering all these artists and killing more than 10 of them, after shooting them that many times, they don't even look like a human. And then what he did was demanding every artist stand up and go closer and then take a look around of the site of the execution. So many of them were like fainting, peeing in their pants. And do you know what this does? When you see something like public execution once, you are traumatized for the rest of your life.
I mean, that part's largely true. You know, if you're a child and you see somebody die brutally in front of you, it's going to traumatize you for the rest of your life. So, you know, you wonder why the people of the DPRK are so anti-American and are so hell-bent on maintaining their own sovereignty when the U.S. killed 20% of their population just 70 years ago. You know, there are people still alive from that time. And these stories have been passed down from generations. That's one person in every family of 5 killed in the Korean War. Think of the trauma that created. Think of the families that destroyed. Mao Zedong's son was killed by a U.S. bomb. Right? This war ripped families apart. But, you know, defectors and the U.S. empire and the U.S. media and the Western NGOs are only concerned with the trauma that may have occurred from this story that there's no real evidence for. Right? They're not concerned about the trauma that came from the very real Korean War, where U.S. pilots themselves are the ones who told us they killed 20% of the population and demolished every single building in Pyongyang that's more than 1 story tall. But who cares about that trauma or any of the trauma from the U.S.'s murderous imperialist wars, from the Iraq War, the trauma that occurred from the slave market that NATO brought back to Libya, or the trauma in Syria, where I actually know people who have spent time over there and come back with PTSD and not gotten taken care of by the U.S., or Vietnam, you know, or the trauma that happens from school shootings in the U.S. every day. We're not concerned about this. We're concerned about potential trauma that may have occurred, like I said, in a story published by a tabloid with no evidence, because it's the U.S. enemy state. And we can never look inward and criticize ourselves. It's all about how evil are these other countries. How horrific is every other country but us?
There's no going back. Once you see something like that, there's no turning back ever in human psychology. But this artist, it's not like they only get to see this once. They see it so often. And imagine in their horror, they are gonna be terrified to death. And the only thing they remember at the point is like, I will be obedient as much as I can. So I will never die like that. And that.
Yeah, that's why the people support their sovereignty. That's why they don't want the U.S. empire or the Japanese colonizers to take them over again. Not because of the generational trauma that was induced because of torture and slavery and the mass bombing campaigns that killed everyone and wiped out every church in North Korea, which was previously called the Jerusalem of the East because it had so many Christian churches, but they were all destroyed by US bombs. That's not the trauma passed down through generations that makes it so Koreans don't want US involvement and they want to have their own system of governance and their own economy. It's because they're all just so controlled by Kim Jong-un. It's because Kim Jong-un has a spy within every family in the country, and then he has someone spying on them and someone spying on them and someone spying on them. Hell, he even has someone spying on himself and a spy to spy on that person. That's why people in the DPRK think how they do. They don't have an autonomy. They don't have agency. They aren't intelligent people who understand their history and the legacy of colonialism in their country. They're just all spied on by Kim Jong-un. He decides what everybody in the country thinks. Like, this is absurd and ridiculous. And Yeonmi's talking about trauma, which it's a good point. If you want to bring up trauma, let's talk about the generational trauma that occurs when you kill 20% of a country's population and then leave them under sanctions and occupy another or half of their country for the next 70 years.
That is a thing. That's what Kim Jong-un is doing now. And why would he always persecuting artists in a brutal way is also that he thinks somehow artists is more open-minded. They are more prone to corrupt in their ideology. So if for normal, general population, we do think called self-criticism sessions once a week. But for artists, once even 2 days. That's how Kim Jong-un makes sure that artists, their minds doesn't get corrupt. And their anti-ideology of lifting the party and the revolution.
So he forces them to criticize themselves and hear from the people if they're going to make money as an artist. It has to be art that benefits the people, and they got to remain critical of it. That sounds cool, especially when you look at the system of art in the U.S., where anytime a movie in Hollywood uses a military outfit or anything related to the U.S. military, the Pentagon gets a lot of control over how the U.S. is portrayed, how the military is portrayed. They get to alter the movie. Or where you have the DOD and the Pentagon basically creating themselves these movies like Top Gun Maverick. We're funneling all this money into the Marvel movies, which gives this idea of, there are bad guys, there are evil, bad comic book villains like Kim Jong-un, and then there are good guys who got to take them out, like Tony Stark, the weapons manufacturer, and all us good Western U.S. Or the military industrial complex in the U.S. Those are the good guys. There's so much, not only just control of Hollywood by wealthy studios who are looking to make as much as they can in the market, which is true, and that has a bunch of horrible effects on the artwork that we get. But you also have huge Pentagon, DOD, imperialist control over the production of movies because they want to control the production of any and all information. And they know that all Americans pretty much watch movies and TV shows. So why wouldn't they try and control that? Having celebrities and artists who are loyal to the people and who are criticized by the people sounds pretty awesome to me.
Revolution, and Kim is always on that point. This is unbelievable. There's nothing we can do to stop this kind of inhumane public execution in North Korea. But I think all I can do right now is be the voice for the voiceless. And I really hope you guys use your voice, use your platform to raise awareness about my people. So somehow international community can understand how grim the human rights situations in North Korea is and come up with a better policy and convincing China to stop sponsoring this dictatorship in North Korea. So please share this video, guys. Hit that like button and let everybody know what's happening to my people.
Please, everyone, use your platform to share this. And now, not only does she want you to use your platform to share this story that she gave no real sources for, no real evidence for, and if you dig into it like we did before I played the video, there is no real evidence for. And if you try and fact check it, it even shows contradictions or holes in the story. There was no conductor by this name in all of Korea who was apparently killed. But just take Yeonmi's video and share it. Share it on your platforms if you want to be a good person. So they weaponize your compassion, right? They have her tell you the most heinous stories you can think of. She doesn't talk about evidence for them, of course, but she tells these horrific stories that pull on your heartstrings and make you feel bad. And just share it on your platform. Share it on your platform. And target it at China. Share it on your platform, and also share negative sentiment towards China, which is NATO and the U.S. empire's #1 target right now. Basically doing a new Cold War against China. So this is largely how the defector industry works, or how they propagate these stories, right, to such a mass scale to where almost everyone believes them. Not almost everyone, but a lot of Americans believe them. You take a story from a South Korean tabloid that doesn't have any evidence, you publish it in Newsweek, and you just kind of cover up the fact that there's no real evidence for it by saying, yeah, we don't, there was nobody by the or this orchestra conductor who was killed. We looked it up, and there were no other conductors, or there were no conductors in all of Korea with that name. But we know for sure he was executed, right? There's no evidence for it, but we know for sure it happened. So they bury the truth, they bury the holes in the story, and then Yeonmi Park takes it almost like it's a game of telephone. So it went from tabloid to Western outlet Newsweek to Yeonmi Park, who gives no evidence at all, and almost makes it act like, or almost seems like this is something that happened to her, something that she witnessed as a defector. Tells the story without talking about the holes in the story, without even mentioning the contradictions in the story or where the story came from, any evidence at all, and then tells you to share her video, right? So the Newsweek article probably didn't get that many views. The South Korean tabloid article probably got less, but then Yeonmi Park's video gets however many views this video has.
All I can do right now.
5.1 million. So 5.1 million people who are gobbling up this story that has no evidence. That is the purpose that celebrity defectors like Yeonmi Park serve. The distribution of fake news or misinformation, right? This misinformation was produced in South Korea, transported to the U.S. via Newsweek, and taken by Yeonmi Park and distributed to 5.1 million people on YouTube. There's one part here I want to find. She says the story almost seems unbelievable.
Kim is like always on that point. This is unbelievable. There's nothing we can do to stop this kind of inhumane public execution in North Korea.
This is unbelievable. Yes, it is, Yeonmi. We all agree with you. It is absolutely unbelievable. So that was a great case study in how this stuff works. And unfortunately, if you read the comments, there are so many people gobbling it up, and that could be influenced by bots. And I mean, the comments could be directly controlled because it's Yeonmi Park's YouTube channel. And, you have the ability to filter and delete any comments that you want. But some of the worst ones I saw, one said, I just saw Yeonmi Park in an interview, and she said that she hates when Americans say they are oppressed because she knows what real oppression is. I have tremendous respect for what you're doing, Yeonmi, and the U.S. can learn so much from you. Please keep talking. So there's someone who took away from this video, American capitalism's great. Right? Nobody's oppressed under capitalism. The people of the DPRK aren't being oppressed by Western capitalist sanctions. We just need to stop complaining and stop criticizing our government and stop criticizing our ruling class, because at least we aren't communists like North Korea. At least we aren't evil commies like them. Which is another, purpose, which is the main purpose these stories serve, is making other countries seem horrific. In relation to the U.S., quit complaining about the U.S. You could be in the DPRK while completely ignoring that the U.S. killed 20% of their population. But yeah, it encourages people not to be critical of our own system and spend all our time thinking about how we can destroy other countries that we don't even understand. using fake news stories to get people to hate those countries. So one of the other comments I read, one of the other greatest hits, said, "That is insane. I can't even imagine. I have so much respect for you, for what you've seen and been through, and how despite that you are still so open about everything that goes on there, and your efforts to spread awareness and help stop this disgusting regime. Anyway, subscribe." Yes, her efforts to destroy this disgusting regime are so selfless. She's so honorable. She's just getting on this YouTube channel and doing this despite all the hate that she doesn't receive. Because she truly cares about the people. It has nothing to do with the NGOs sponsoring her, paying her thousands of dollars. It has nothing to do with the fact that she's a celebrity defector. So making videos and doing interviews and doing speaking engagements is literally her job. It's her source of income. And it's a very lucrative source of income that's allowed her to live better at first than the vast majority of people in South Korea, and now has allowed her to live better than the majority of people in the US, the system that we're not allowed to complain about, according to her commenters. Has nothing to do with the financial incentives. Yeonmi is just this altruistic person who only tells the truth. Definitely not just repeating the stuff that NGOs and the think tanks who fund her tell her to repeat. What's the last one? Another comment said, "I had no idea how brutal and insane life can be in North Korea. You are so very brave to speak out. Hopefully it will educate the world about this and help to make a positive change. Such cruelty is shocking." So here you see someone, saying, "I had no idea life could even be like this in the DPRK." It's so shocking. I almost can't believe it. It almost seems unbelievable. And you see that a lot of people, and a lot of kids especially, get their first experience with North Korea, or the first knowledge that they get about the DPRK, comes from YouTube. It comes from YouTube defector testimonies that happen to go viral, right? So this is a country that, like I said, our country invaded and killed 20% of their population, wiped out all the buildings over 1 story tall, and then kept them under horrific economic sanctions and siege tactics ever since. But we're not taught about that. That's brushed over in the American education system. Sometimes they'll talk about Vietnam, but they always jump over the Korean War to do so. So it's not like Americans are learning the horrible stuff that we've done to this country and then learning what the DPRK is like, right? A lot of people's first experience with the DPRK is these tabloid stories. These tabloid stories told by defectors that are being propped up by Western NGOs and arms of the empire, that everybody takes as fact. Or everybody who's not well versed on the issue takes as fact, out of context stories. So, this is, people wonder how Americans have such a wrong idea about the DPRK, how people's conceptions of it can be so far off from reality, or how they could get everybody to believe this. It's because a lot of, nobody's taught the history, or most people aren't taught the history. And if they are, they're told that North Korea invaded the South. They're not told the true story. They don't, the story doesn't start with the overthrowing of the Japanese colonizers either. And then they just see these defector testimonies, these tabloid stories about how evil this country is. So yeah, that's how it happens. That's how the whole population has been brainwashed about this country that our country is trying to destroy. Someone says, "I'm so sorry for what you have been through. I hope you are finally in a safe place." She is. Yeonmi is in a safe place. She left in 2007, and she's been in the U.S. since 2014. Like I said, living better than most workers by doing these defector testimonies. She's safe because she's in the country that is sanctioning her homeland and starving her people. Or there's not starvation in the North anymore, but there was in the 90s and before that. 90s, after the Soviet Union collapsed and the DPRK didn't have their main trading partner anymore. So they were less able to get around the horrific U.S. sanctions. So that is why Yeonmi's safe, because she's in the country that's targeting her homeland, starving her people. She's no longer in that country being targeted by the U.S., but she's encouraging the sanctioning of her homeland and the targeting of her own people with this rhetoric, right? She's saying the U.S. needs to do more. Whoops. Threw my mouse off the table. The U.S. needs to do more about this. They need to get more involved, more sanctions, and let's target China too, because China isn't sanctioning the DPRK. They're trading with them, and trading and economic development are evil. You know, those are evil authoritarian things. Sanctions are how we protect human rights, even though they starve children.